Have you ever been told you weren't good enough right when you needed support the most? Sometimes the cruelest words come from the people we trust. But what happens when those same people realize they were terribly wrong? This story will show you how one woman's humiliation became her greatest triumph. And trust me, you won't believe the incredible twist that changed everything. Hi, my beautiful friends. I'm Tina, and I'm here with another powerful story that touched my heart deeply. Today, I want to share with you an incredible journey of transformation that proves something I've always believed. When someone tries to dim your light, sometimes that's exactly the spark you need to shine brighter than ever before. This story is about courage, self-worth, and the amazing things that happen when we refuse to let others define our value. Stay with me until the end, because the way this unfolds will absolutely blow your mind. And I guarantee you'll feel inspired to never give up on your dreams again. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our family here. I pour my heart into bringing you these life-changing stories every single day. Sarah Mitchell had always been a dreamer, the kind of person who saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. At 26, she worked as a marketing coordinator at Pinnacle Creative Agency in downtown Chicago, a position that barely scratched the surface of her true potential. Every morning, she would walk past the gleaming billboards and digital displays that lined Michigan Avenue, imagining the day when her own creative work would be showcased for thousands to see. Sarah had graduated with honors from Northwestern with a degree in marketing and communications. But life had a way of placing her in positions that felt smaller than her dreams. The agency where Sarah worked was owned by Marcus Hendricks, a man in his early 40s who had inherited the business from his father and seemed to take pride in reminding everyone around him of their supposed limitations. Marcus was the kind of person who wore expensive suits and drove a luxury car, but his success felt more inherited than earned. He had a particular talent for making his employees feel small, especially Sarah, who he seemed to view as nothing more than an expendable assistant despite her obvious capabilities and creative insights. For months, Sarah had been developing a comprehensive marketing strategy for their biggest potential client, Grandview Luxury Resorts, a chain that was looking to completely rebrand their image to attract younger, more affluent travelers. Sarah had spent countless evenings and weekends researching market trends, analyzing competitor strategies, and developing innovative approaches that could revolutionize how luxury hospitality brands connect with modern consumers. Her presentation was thorough, creative, and backed by solid data that showed potential for increasing their clients' market share by 30% within the first year. The day of the presentation arrived, and Sarah felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement coursing through her veins. She had printed multiple copies of her detailed proposal, prepared backup slides, and rehearsed her pitch until every word felt natural and confident. The conference room at Pinnacle Creative was filled with potential clients from Grandview, including their CEO, Victoria Grandview herself, a sophisticated woman known for her sharp business acumen and demanding standards. Sarah saw this as her moment to finally prove that she belonged in the big leagues, that her ideas were valuable, and her vision could transform businesses. As Sarah began her presentation, she could see the interest growing in Victoria Grandview's eyes. The CEO leaned forward, asking insightful questions about implementation timelines and budget allocations, clearly impressed by the depth of research and innovative strategies Sarah had developed. The presentation was flowing beautifully, and Sarah felt more confident with each slide, knowing she was delivering exactly what this client needed to hear. Her heart raced with excitement as she realized this could be the breakthrough moment she had been working toward for years. But just as Sarah was reaching the climax of her presentation, Marcus Hendricks interrupted abruptly, his voice cutting through the room like a cold blade. "I think that's quite enough," he said, standing up and gesturing dismissively toward Sarah. "Ms. Mitchell, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, I believe our clients deserve to hear strategies from someone with actual experience in high-stakes marketing." The room fell silent, and Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as every eye turned toward her. The moment of triumph suddenly transformed into humiliation. Marcus continued his devastating critique, his words designed to diminish not just her presentation, but her entire professional worth. Sarah is still learning the ropes here at Pinnacle, and while her ideas show potential, they lack the sophistication and market understanding that comes from years of proven success. I think it would be more appropriate for me to take over this presentation and show you what real strategic marketing looks like. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable, and Sarah felt herself shrinking under the weight of his public dismissal, her confidence crumbling as her dreams seemed to slip away before her eyes. Victoria Grandview looked uncomfortable with the interruption, but remained diplomatically silent as Marcus launched into his own version of a marketing strategy, one that was considerably more conventional and less innovative than everything Sarah had prepared. As Sarah stood there, holding her detailed proposal that now felt worthless in her hands, she realized this wasn't just about one presentation or one client. This was about her entire future and whether she would continue to allow others to define her worth and limit her potential. The humiliation Sarah experienced in that conference room was unlike anything she had ever endured in her professional life. As Marcus droned on with his generic marketing approach, completely disregarding the months of detailed research and innovative strategies she had developed, Sarah felt something fundamental shift inside her. The embarrassment was crushing, yes, but beneath it grew something much more powerful, an unshakable determination that this would never happen to her again. She watched Victoria Grandview's expression grow increasingly disinterested as Marcus presented tired, outdated concepts that any first-year marketing student could have developed, and Sarah realized that her boss was not only sabotaging her career, but potentially losing what could have been the agency's most important client. The way Marcus stumbled through her meticulously crafted demographic analysis, butchering every key insight with his superficial understanding, made her jaw clench so tightly she thought her teeth might crack. Victoria's perfectly manicured fingers drummed impatiently against the mahogany conference table, her designer watch catching the light as she glanced at it for the third time in 10 minutes. "Is this really the innovative approach you promised?" Victoria finally interrupted, her voice carrying the kind of polite disappointment that cuts deeper than outright criticism. Marcus cleared his ties as my throat nervously, shuffling through papers he clearly hadn't bothered to review properly, while Sarah sat frozen in her chair, watching her months of brilliant work being transformed into a mediocre disaster right before her eyes. When the meeting concluded with polite but clearly unenthusiastic responses from the Grandview team, Sarah excused herself and retreated to the bathroom, where she allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to process the full impact of what had just occurred. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, seeing not the defeated woman that Marcus had tried to create, but someone who had been awakened to a truth she should have recognized long ago. She was capable of so much more than this environment would ever allow her to achieve. The fire in her eyes grew stronger as she made a decision that would change the trajectory of her entire life. That evening, Sarah went home to her small apartment and did something that required more courage than she had ever mustered before. She opened her laptop and began crafting a carefully worded email to Victoria Grandview, one that would either launch her career into a new stratosphere or potentially end it altogether. In her message, she explained that she was the person who had developed the original marketing strategy that was interrupted during the meeting, and she requested just 30 minutes of Victoria's time to present the complete vision that could transform Grandview Luxury Resorts into the most sought-after hospitality brand for affluent millennials and Gen Z travelers. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she typed, knowing that reaching out to a client behind her employer's back could result in immediate termination. But she had reached a point where the risk of staying silent felt far greater than the risk of speaking up. She attached her complete presentation, including detailed financial projections, innovative social media strategies, and partnership opportunities with influential lifestyle brands that could elevate Grandview's profile beyond anything their current marketing approach could achieve. Before she could second-guess herself, she hit send, then sat back in her chair and waited for whatever consequences would follow. The response came faster than Sarah had dared to hope. Within 18 hours, Victoria Grandview herself called Sarah directly, expressing genuine enthusiasm for the innovative approaches outlined in the presentation and requesting an immediate meeting to Discuss implementation possibilities. Victoria's voice carried a warmth and respect that Sarah hadn't experienced in years of working under Marcus. And when Victoria mentioned that she had been disappointed by the amateur approach presented at the agency meeting, Sarah felt a surge of vindication that made her heart race with excitement. During their private meeting at an elegant downtown cafe, Victoria revealed something that stunned Sarah. Grandview Luxury Resorts had been considering ending their search for a marketing partner after the lackluster presentation at Pinnacle Creative. But Sarah's follow-up email had completely changed her perspective. Your strategies show a deep understanding of our target market that frankly surprised me, Victoria said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Most agencies give us recycled approaches that might have worked 5 years ago, but you've identified opportunities I hadn't even considered, and your financial projections suggest we could see returns that would justify a significant investment in rebranding. But Victoria had an even more surprising proposition. Rather than working through Pinnacle Creative, she wanted to hire Sarah directly as an independent marketing consultant, offering her a contract worth more than Sarah's annual salary for just the initial phase of the rebranding project. I believe in working with people who understand vision and innovation, Victoria explained. And it's clear that your current environment isn't allowing your talents to flourish the way they should. The offer felt almost too good to be true, but Victoria's sincerity was unmistakable, and Sarah realized this was the opportunity she had been unconsciously preparing for her entire career. My dear friends, I can see some of you are probably thinking about times when someone underestimated your abilities or made you feel small. And I want you to know that your worth isn't determined by other people's limitations or fears. Sometimes the people who try to dim our light are actually showing us just how brightly we're capable of shining. If this story is touching your heart the way it's touching mine, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments about a time when you found strength in a difficult situation. I read every single comment, and your stories inspire the content I share with our beautiful community here. Now, let's see what happened when Sarah finally found the courage to step into her true power. The decision to accept Victoria's offer required Sarah to confront everything she had been taught about professional loyalty and playing it safe. For 3 days, she wrestled with the implications of leaving Pinnacle Creative to work independently, knowing that Marcus would undoubtedly view her departure as a betrayal, and that she would be trading the security of a steady paycheck for the uncertainty of freelance consulting. But every time doubt crept into her mind, she remembered the feeling of being dismissed and humiliated in that conference room, and she knew that staying in an environment that stifled her potential would be the real betrayal, a betrayal of herself and everything she was capable of achieving. On Thursday morning, Sarah walked into Marcus's office with her resignation letter in hand, her heart pounding, but her resolve unwavering. Marcus was scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledging her presence until she placed the formal letter on his desk and said quietly but firmly, "I'm giving you my 2 weeks' notice, Marcus. I've accepted a consulting position that will allow me to develop my skills and work with clients who value innovative marketing strategies." The words felt surreal leaving her mouth, but also incredibly liberating, as if she was finally speaking a truth that had been building inside her for years. Marcus's reaction was exactly what Sarah had expected, but somehow worse than she had imagined. He looked up from the resignation letter with the expression of complete disbelief, then began laughing in a way that felt cruel and condescending. "You're joking, right?" he said, leaning back in his leather chair with an arrogant smirk. "Sarah, you do realize that without this agency, without the structure and clients I provide, you're absolutely nothing in this industry? You have no network, no reputation, and certainly no ability to land the kind of high-profile clients that make real money in marketing, consulting." But Marcus was just getting started with his character assassination. "Do you honestly believe that someone with your limited experience can compete with established agencies that have been building relationships in this city for decades? You'll be back here within 6 months, probably sooner, begging for your old position back, and I might not even have an opening for you then." His words were designed to plant seeds of doubt and fear, to make Sarah question the decision she had spent days carefully considering. But instead of breaking her confidence, his cruelty only strengthened her determination to prove him spectacularly wrong. Sarah looked directly into Marcus's eyes and spoke with a calmness that surprised even her. "You're entitled to your opinion about my potential, Marcus, but I've realized that spending another day in an environment where my ideas are dismissed and my contributions are undervalued would be a waste of the talents I know I possess. I appreciate the opportunity to work here, but I'm ready to build something bigger than what this position will ever allow me to become." Her professional composure remained intact, even as Marcus's face grew red with indignation, and she felt a profound sense of personal power that she had never experienced before. The following 2 weeks passed in a blur of transition activities and barely concealed hostility from Marcus, who seemed to take Sarah's departure as a personal affront to his leadership and business acumen. He made several attempts to undermine her remaining work, assigning her to meaningless tasks and making snide comments about her delusions of grandeur in front of other employees. But Sarah maintained her professionalism throughout the transition period, documenting all her ongoing projects thoroughly and ensuring that her departure would cause minimal disruption to the agency's operations, even though Marcus clearly didn't deserve such consideration. Meanwhile, Sarah was secretly working evenings and weekends to prepare for her first major project with Grandview Luxury Resorts, developing detailed implementation timelines, researching vendor partnerships, and creating comprehensive strategies that would demonstrate her ability to deliver exceptional results as an independent consultant. Victoria had already introduced her to key members of the Grandview executive team, and the enthusiasm they showed for her innovative approaches gave Sarah confidence that she was making the right decision, even as Marcus continued his attempts to make her feel foolish for believing in her own capabilities. On her last day at Pinnacle Creative, Sarah packed her personal belongings, while Marcus made one final attempt to convince her she was making a catastrophic mistake. "When this consulting fantasy falls apart," he said with vindictive satisfaction, "don't expect me to welcome you back with open arms. You're burning a bridge here that you're going to regret burning." But Sarah simply smiled and replied, "Marcus, I'm not burning a bridge. I'm building one, and it's going to take me places you never imagined I could go." As Sarah walked out of the Pinnacle Creative offices for the last time, carrying a small box of personal items and her laptop containing months of innovative marketing strategies, she felt something she had never experienced before: complete ownership of her professional destiny. The fear was still there, lurking beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by an excitement about possibilities that felt limitless. She was no longer someone else's employee working within the constraints of their limited vision. She was Sarah Mitchell, marketing consultant and strategic innovator, ready to prove that talent and determination could overcome any obstacle that small-minded people might place in her path. The first 3 months of working as an independent consultant challenged every assumption Sarah had held about her own capabilities and the marketing industry itself. Victoria Grandview had not only followed through on her commitment to hire Sarah, but had also introduced her to other executives in the luxury hospitality sector who were intrigued by her innovative approaches to reaching younger, more affluent demographics. What began as a single contract with Grandview Luxury Resorts quickly expanded into a portfolio of clients who were eager to work with someone who understood that traditional marketing strategies were failing to connect with modern consumers who valued authenticity and experiences over conventional luxury marketing messages. Each new client brought fresh challenges that ignited Sarah's creativity in ways she hadn't experienced since college, when she'd stayed up all night crafting campaigns that her professors had called visionary and ahead of their time. Now, finally, she had the platform and freedom to bring those bold visions to life. Sarah's strategies for Grandview proved to be even more successful than her initial projections had suggested. Within the first quarter of implementation, the resort chain saw a 47% increase in bookings from their target demographic, and their social media engagement rates tripled as Sarah's authentic storytelling approaches began resonating with travelers who were seeking meaningful experiences rather than just expensive accommodations. Victoria was so impressed with these results that she recommended Sarah to colleagues at other hospitality companies, and word began spreading throughout the industry about the young consultant who was revolutionizing how luxury brands connected with next-generation consumers. The validation felt intoxicating after years of having her ideas dismissed or credited to others, and Sarah found herself working 16-hour days, not out of desperation, but out of pure passion for what she was creating. But success in her professional life was only part of the transformation Sarah was experiencing. For the first time in years, she felt genuinely excited about her work, spending hours developing creative campaigns and strategic partnerships that felt more like artistic expression than traditional marketing. She was collaborating with lifestyle influencers, partnering with sustainable fashion brands, and creating immersive experience packages that told compelling stories about travel and personal growth. Each project allowed her to explore new aspects of her creativity while generating impressive returns for her clients, proving that innovative marketing could be both artistically fulfilling and financially successful. The thrill of seeing her wildest creative concepts not only accepted but celebrated by clients who trusted her vision completely was a feeling she'd almost forgotten was possible in professional life. The financial rewards of her consulting work exceeded anything Sarah had imagined possible when she first left Pinnacle Creative. Within 6 months, she was earning more than twice her former salary, and the demand for her services was growing so rapidly that she began considering hiring additional team members to help manage the increasing workload. She moved from her small apartment to a beautiful loft in a trendy neighborhood, purchased her first new car, and began building a savings account that would provide the security she had always craved while still allowing her to take creative risks that could yield extraordinary results. The moment she signed the lease on her new loft, Sarah stood in the empty space and whispered to herself, "This is what believing in yourself feels like," as tears of relief and triumph streamed down her face. More importantly than the financial success, Sarah discovered that she had developed a reputation in the marketing industry as someone who could identify and capitalize on emerging trends before they became mainstream. Her insights about the intersection of sustainability, wellness, and luxury travel had positioned her as a thought leader whose opinions were sought by industry publications and conference organizers. She began receiving invitations to speak at marketing conferences, and several universities approached her about teaching guest lectures on innovative brand strategy for hospitality and lifestyle companies. Standing on stage at her first major conference, looking out at an audience of industry veterans who hung on her every word, Sarah felt the profound satisfaction of knowing that her voice, the one Marcus had tried so hard to silence, was now being heard and respected by thousands of professionals worldwide. The personal growth Sarah experienced during this period was perhaps even more significant than her professional achievements. She had discovered reservoirs of confidence and creativity that years of working under Marcus had effectively suppressed, and she began to understand that her former environment hadn't just limited her career development, it had actually prevented her from discovering who she truly was when given the freedom to express her full potential. She started taking art classes in the evenings, began traveling to research new markets and trends, and developed friendships with other entrepreneurs who shared her passion for innovation and creative expression. The woman who had once shrunk into herself during meetings now commanded rooms with an easy confidence that felt as natural as breathing, and she realized that Marcus hadn't just underestimated her talent, he had fundamentally misunderstood the depth of her potential. One particularly meaningful moment came when Sarah was featured in a prominent marketing industry magazine as one of their 30 under 30 rising stars in strategic marketing. The article highlighted her innovative approaches to luxury brand marketing and included several case studies of her successful campaigns with major hospitality clients. When Sarah saw her photo and story in the magazine, she felt a profound sense of validation that had nothing to do with proving Marcus wrong and everything to do with proving to herself that she had been right to believe in her own potential even when others couldn't see it. She called her parents that evening, her voice shaking with emotion as she read them the article over the phone, and heard her mother cry with pride as she said, "Honey, I always knew you were special, but seeing the whole world recognize it too. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Since you were little. As autumn approached, Sarah began planning an expansion of her consulting practice that would allow her to work with international clients and explore emerging markets in Europe and Asia. Her success with American luxury hospitality brands had generated interest from companies around the world who were seeking similar transformations in their marketing approaches. And Sarah realized she was building something much larger than just a successful freelance career. She was creating a global consultancy that could influence how entire industries thought about connecting with modern consumers. The scope of her vision no longer felt overwhelming, but exhilarating. And she found herself dreaming bigger than she'd ever dared before, mapping out plans for offices in London and Tokyo while sketching campaign concepts that would redefine luxury marketing on an international scale. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah that she was now earning more money, working with more prestigious clients, and enjoying more professional respect than Marcus had ever achieved in his inherited family business. But more importantly, she had discovered that her worth as a professional and as a person had never been dependent on anyone else's recognition or approval. It had always existed within her, waiting for the right circumstances and sufficient courage to be fully expressed and shared with the world. By the end of her first year as an independent consultant, Sarah had achieved something that seemed impossible during her time at Pinnacle Creative. She had become one of the most sought-after marketing strategists in the luxury hospitality industry, with a waiting list of potential clients and speaking engagements booked months in advance. Her innovative campaigns had not only transformed her clients' market positions, but had also influenced broader industry trends. As competing companies began adopting similar approaches to reach younger, more conscious consumers who valued authentic experiences over traditional luxury marketing messages. The irony wasn't lost on her that the very ideas Marcus had dismissed as unrealistic millennial nonsense were now being studied in business schools and featured in Harvard Business Review case studies. Sarah often found herself smiling during quiet moments in her home office, remembering Marcus's condescending tone when he'd wave his hand dismissively and declare her concepts too progressive for real business. Now those same progressive ideas were generating millions in revenue for her clients and revolutionizing how luxury brands communicated with modern consumers. The success story that would ultimately bring Sarah face-to-face with Marcus again began when she landed her biggest contract yet, a comprehensive rebranding campaign for Meridian International, a hotel chain with properties in 12 major cities across the United States and Europe. The Meridian project represented everything Sarah had been working toward, combining her expertise in digital marketing, experiential branding, and cross-cultural consumer psychology into a campaign that would reach millions of potential travelers and position Meridian as the premier choice for sophisticated, environmentally conscious travelers. When the Meridian CEO first called her, Sarah felt her heart racing with excitement and disbelief. "Sarah, we've been following your work since you left Pinnacle," he had said, his voice warm with genuine respect. "Frankly, we want exactly what you gave the Aurora resort chain, but bigger. We want the Sarah Mitchell treatment." She had to mute the call for a moment to compose herself, remembering how Marcus had once sneered that no one would ever request her by name. The contrast between this CEO's respectful appreciation and Marcus's years of belittlement felt like validation on the deepest level, healing wounds she hadn't even realized were still tender. Sarah's approach to the Meridian campaign was characteristically innovative and comprehensive. She developed partnerships with local artists in each city where Meridian had properties, creating unique cultural experiences that would differentiate each location while maintaining a cohesive brand identity. She collaborated with sustainable fashion designers to create limited edition merchandise that guests could purchase as authentic mementos of their stays. Most importantly, she crafted a storytelling campaign that positioned travel not as consumption, but as personal transformation, appealing to travelers who wanted their journeys to contribute to their own growth and to the communities they visited. The creative centerpiece of the Meridian campaign was a series of large-scale billboard advertisements that would be placed in high-traffic areas of major cities, featuring stunning photography of Meridian properties integrated with inspirational messages about travel as a path to personal discovery and cultural connection. Sarah worked with award-winning photographers and graphic designers to create visuals that were both aesthetically beautiful and emotionally compelling. Knowing that these billboards would need to capture attention in crowded urban environments while communicating complex brand values in just a few seconds of viewing time. When the Meridian billboards launched simultaneously in 12 cities, the response exceeded even Sarah's optimistic projections. Social media engagement around the campaign exploded as travelers shared photos of the billboards and tagged friends who they wanted to travel with to Meridian properties. Travel bloggers and lifestyle influencers began featuring Meridian in their content, drawn by the authentic storytelling and visually striking campaign elements that Sarah had developed. Within the first month of the campaign launch, Meridian saw a 63% increase in direct bookings and a 48% increase in their social media following. But the most personally significant moment for Sarah came when she learned that one of the billboard locations chosen for maximum visibility was along the main thoroughfare that Marcus drove every day between his home and the Pinnacle Creative offices. The billboard featured Sarah's name prominently as the creative director of the campaign, along with her consulting company's logo and a beautiful image that perfectly captured the innovative approach to luxury marketing that had made her famous throughout the industry. Every morning and evening, Marcus would pass this billboard that represented everything he had told Sarah she would never be able to achieve on her own. The universe seemed to have a sense of poetic justice when Marcus finally reached out to Sarah, exactly 18 months after her departure from Pinnacle Creative. His email was carefully worded but couldn't disguise the underlying desperation of his situation. Pinnacle Creative had lost several major clients over the past year, including two who had specifically mentioned that they were seeking more innovative marketing approaches like the ones we see from consultants such as Sarah Mitchell. Marcus's inherited business was struggling to remain competitive in an industry that was rapidly evolving beyond his outdated approaches and limited creative vision. My beautiful friends, I hope this story is reminding you that sometimes the people who doubt us most are actually giving us the greatest gift: the motivation to prove just how wrong they can be about our potential. When someone tells you that you're not capable of achieving your dreams, remember Sarah's journey and know that their limitations don't have to become yours. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel family and share in the comments a dream that someone once told you was impossible. I believe in every single one of you, and I love reading about your aspirations and achievements. Now, let's see what happened when Marcus finally realized just how spectacularly wrong he had been about Sarah's abilities. Marcus's email to Sarah was a masterpiece of professional humility wrapped in thinly veiled desperation, and reading it gave Sarah a complex mixture of satisfaction and sympathy that surprised her with its intensity. He had crafted his message carefully, beginning with congratulations on her remarkable success in the consulting world, and acknowledging that he had perhaps underestimated her potential during her, time at Pinnacle Creative. He went on to explain that his agency was exploring opportunities to collaborate with innovative independent consultants, and wondered if Sarah might be interested in discussing a mutually beneficial partnership arrangement that could provide her with additional resources while bringing her cutting-edge expertise to Pinnacle's client base. The transparent nature of Marcus's outreach became even more apparent when Sarah learned through industry contacts that Pinnacle Creative was facing serious financial difficulties, having lost 4 major clients in the past 6 months to competitors who offered more creative and data-driven marketing approaches. 2 of those clients had specifically mentioned Sarah's work with Meridian International as an example of the kind of innovative thinking they wanted from their marketing partners, a development that must have felt particularly painful for Marcus as he watched his former employees' success contribute directly to his business's decline. Sarah took several days to consider her response to Marcus's proposal, not because she was tempted by the opportunity, but because she wanted to craft a reply that would be both professional and definitive. She had no interest in returning to work with someone who had so thoroughly dismissed her abilities and treated her with such disrespect. But she also recognized that Marcus was reaching out from a position of genuine need, and her response would set the tone for how their professional relationship would be concluded once and for all. When Sarah finally responded to Marcus, her email was gracious but unambiguous in its message. She thanked him for thinking of her consulting practice and acknowledged that Pinnacle Creative had provided valuable early experience in her marketing career. However, she explained that her current client commitments and strategic focus on international expansion made it impossible for her to take on additional partnerships at this time. She wished him success in finding the right collaborative relationships to help grow his business and suggested that he might benefit from hiring younger marketing professionals who understood emerging digital trends and consumer behaviors. But the real moment of reckoning came 3 weeks later, when Marcus appeared unannounced at the coffee shop where Sarah often worked in the afternoons, clearly having researched her habits and chosen this accidental encounter as a way to make a more personal appeal for her professional services. Sarah was in the middle of a video call with potential clients in London when she noticed Marcus sitting at a nearby table, obviously waiting for her meeting to conclude so he could approach her with what she suspected would be a more desperate version of his previous request. When Sarah finished her call and began packing her laptop, Marcus approached her table with a smile that looked forced and uncomfortable. "Sarah, what a pleasant surprise. Seeing you here," he said, as if their encounter was purely coincidental rather than obviously planned. "I was just thinking about you after seeing that incredible Meridian campaign around the city. You've really made quite a name for yourself in the industry." His tone carried a mixture of admiration and regret that made Sarah feel both vindicated and slightly sad for the man who had once seemed so confident in his dismissal of her potential. Marcus's real purpose for the encounter became clear. As he continued talking, his professional facade gradually giving way to genuine desperation as he explained the challenges Pinnacle Creative was facing in an increasingly competitive marketplace. "I'll be honest with you, Sarah," he said, lowering his voice and leaning closer across the small cafe table. "I made a mistake letting you go, and an even bigger mistake not recognizing your talents while you were working for me. My business is struggling because I've been too set in old ways of thinking, and I'm wondering if there might be some way we could work together again, perhaps with you taking a leadership role in creative strategy." Sarah listened to Marcus's proposal with a mixture of professionalism and amazement, realizing that this conversation represented a complete reversal of the power dynamic that had existed between them just 18 months earlier. The man who had once dismissed her ideas as lacking sophistication was now essentially admitting that his business couldn't survive without the kind of innovative thinking that she had tried to contribute during her employment at his agency. The irony was almost overwhelming, but Sarah felt no desire to gloat or make Marcus feel worse about his situation than he obviously already did. Instead, Sarah responded to Marcus's plea with the same dignity and professionalism that had characterized all her interactions since leaving Pinnacle Creative. She explained that while she appreciated his acknowledgement of her abilities and his interest in working together, she had built her consulting practice specifically to avoid the kind of hierarchical limitations that traditional agencies imposed on creative professionals. Her current client relationships, international expansion plans, and creative freedom were too valuable to compromise by returning to an employment structure that had previously stifled her potential and professional growth. Marcus's disappointment was visible as Sarah declined his offer, but he seemed to understand and accept her decision with more grace than she had expected from him. As they parted ways outside the coffee shop, Marcus looked up at the Meridian International billboard that was visible from where they stood and said quietly, "I drive past that billboard every day, and every time I see your name up there, I'm reminded of how wrong I was about what you could accomplish." It was perhaps the most honest and humble statement Sarah had ever heard from him, and it provided a sense of closure that she hadn't realized she needed. The encounter with Marcus marked a turning point in Sarah's journey, not because it changed her professional trajectory, but because it finally allowed her to release the last remnants of anger and resentment that she had been carrying since her humiliating departure from Pinnacle Creative. Seeing Marcus's genuine regret and obvious professional struggles helped Sarah understand that holding on to negative feelings about their past relationship was unnecessary and ultimately counterproductive to her continued growth and success as an entrepreneur and creative professional. "I never thought I'd say this," Marcus had admitted during their chance meeting at the industry conference, his voice barely audible above the bustling crowd. "But you were right about everything. The digital pivot, the authentic storytelling approach, even that crazy idea about micro-influencer partnerships that I called a waste of time." Sarah watched as he nervously adjusted his tie, the same nervous habit she remembered from their heated discussions 3 years earlier. "I've been watching your success from afar, and honestly, it's been humbling. I let my ego get in the way of recognizing real talent, and I'm sorry for that." The sincerity in his eyes caught her off guard, melting away years of carefully constructed resentment in a single moment of unexpected vulnerability. In the months following their conversation, Sarah watched from a professional distance as Marcus made significant changes to his business approach, hiring younger marketing professionals and adopting some of the digital strategies that he had once dismissed as trendy and ineffective. While Pinnacle Creative never fully recovered its former market position, the agency did stabilize and begin attracting smaller clients who appreciated their more contemporary approach to brand development and marketing strategy. Sarah felt genuinely pleased to see Marcus adapting and growing, even though their paths would likely never cross again in any meaningful professional capacity. Sarah's own success continued to expand in ways that exceeded even her most ambitious early projections. The Meridian International campaign became a case study taught in marketing programs at several universities, and Sarah was invited to speak at conferences around the world about innovation in luxury brand marketing and the importance of authentic storytelling in an increasingly skeptical consumer environment. Her consulting practice grew into a full-service marketing agency with offices in 3 cities and a team of creative professionals who shared her commitment to innovative, culturally conscious brand development. Perhaps most significantly, Sarah discovered that her greatest satisfaction came not from the financial rewards of her success, but from the creative freedom to work on projects that aligned with her values and interests. She began accepting pro bono work with sustainable tourism organizations and cultural preservation groups, using her marketing expertise to support causes that promoted environmental responsibility and authentic cultural exchange. These projects reminded her daily that her professional abilities could contribute to positive change in the world, not just increased profits for luxury brands. The billboard that had once symbolized Sarah's triumph over Marcus's dismissive predictions eventually came down as the Meridian campaign evolved into new phases, but Sarah kept a photograph of it in her office as a reminder of how dramatically her life had changed through courage, persistence, and refusing to accept other people's limitations as her own truth. The image served not as a monument to revenge or vindication, but as evidence that dreams pursued with dedication and integrity could manifest in ways that exceeded even the dreamer's original vision. 2 years after starting her consulting practice, Sarah established a mentorship program for young marketing professionals who were struggling to find their creative voices in traditional agency environments. She remembered clearly how isolating and discouraging it felt to have innovative ideas dismissed by supervisors who lacked vision or felt threatened by fresh approaches to familiar challenges. Through her mentorship program, Sarah could provide the encouragement and professional guidance that she wished she had received during her own early career struggles. The program quickly became one of Sarah's most rewarding professional activities, as she watched talented young marketers develop confidence in their abilities and create innovative campaigns that challenged industry conventions in the same way her own work had done. Several of her mentees launched successful independent consulting practices, and others secured leadership positions at progressive agencies that valued creativity and innovation over traditional hierarchy and established relationships. As Sarah reflected on her journey from dismissed employee to industry leader, She realized that Marcus's cruel dismissal of her abilities had actually been one of the most valuable experiences of her professional life. Not because it was pleasant or deserved, but because it forced her to confront the gap between her potential and her current situation. His attempt to diminish her worth had ultimately motivated her to prove her true value, not to him, but to herself and to the clients who benefited from her creative vision and strategic expertise. The billboard might have disappeared from Marcus's daily commute, but Sarah's name and reputation had become permanently established in the marketing industry as synonymous with innovation, integrity, and the kind of authentic brand storytelling that resonated with modern consumers. She had transformed a moment of professional humiliation into a launching pad for extraordinary success, proving that sometimes the people who doubt us most are actually providing the exact motivation we need to achieve our greatest potential and live our most authentic professional lives. Today, when young marketing professionals ask Sarah for advice about handling difficult supervisors or unsupportive work environments, she always tells them the same thing. Your worth is not determined by other people's ability to recognize it, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from situations that diminish your potential and toward opportunities that allow your true capabilities to flourish and make a meaningful impact in the world.